And every New Year's transition, that's kind of like the theme to do the montage of the what happened a year in review. And usually you get the natural disasters, major natural disasters throughout the year, or big celebrations. A lot of it's politically driven, a lot of the political drama and all that stuff. But even while 2025 was happening, we had said many times that this is like a strange year. This is different. And the obvious undercurrent behind all that is the presidency change from Joe Biden to Donald Trump and all the circus that it brought,
that's what the end of 2024 brought to 2025, knowing that the new Trump administration is coming in January 2025.
But you felt an era change over to the next era.
There was a definitely significant changing feel, like a changing of the guard that was different than previous changing of the guards from a political party.
Right.
There was something different about this in the fact that you had this president who was a former president, ran again, didn't get it, and now it's coming back, and it's just all the drama with that. And then you lead into 2025, and now you start living it out. And you know how we were saying, like almost every week, there's a theme of the week or a theme of the month of what's happening in the political circus. I swear Donald Trump, our president, was in a new state every day, a new country every other month, in 10 meetings a day, maybe more. Like I started wondering if this guy's like a actual android or something, and he's not like he's an AI bot or whatever.
I feel like the 4 years under Joe Biden, like America was in a coma or something. You know, it was just like with politics, world affairs, everything that was going on, like it just didn't even exist. We all just kind of just lived day by day and just did whatever we did. And then as soon as Trump is in office, it's like, man, the engines are just roaring. It's just been nonstop. Like every week is something new, something to add on, another thing for people to argue about and bitch and complain and then, fight for, and it's just been like, I don't know, like tired, exhausted, man.
Well, yeah, it's a never-ending feud, and it's a feud that has like seemingly no light at the end of the tunnel, because that's what we also saw as a theme in 2025, is that the greater schism between left and right, the political violence, the social media-driven vitriol, and it's still there.
It's still going on today.
Right now, it's not like it was a blip between these 2 months. No, But to your point about, President Trump, whether he obviously comes with a never resolving saga of you hate him or you love him. And he just comes with that. But regardless of your sentiments about his position or policy, if you were to just track his steps as a president and what he's doing to work, I can't help but say he's working his ass off as a president, whether I like his policy or whether I don't.
Very true.
Whether I hate it. But it's like, there's something to say about that, at least from my regard. Again, I'm coming at this. I've always come at this as neutral as I can, because I didn't have a voting party last time that happened, and I've respected and tried to understand everything from different perspectives. But I understand, like, there's the ton of vitriol behind Donald Trump, and I don't even want to go down that path of trying to weed that out. But the idea is that when you have a leader that's, whether you're for or against his principles or policies, but they're actively on their toes every day. Like, I just, there's something to say about that too, at least for me, because that's work, that's dedication, and I know the haters will say, well, that's all work down an evil path. You know who else was hardworking? Hitler. He was hardworking and everything.
Yeah,
I know that. It doesn't matter though, because that's where I come to the perspective of, man, when we had a president before that like, we had needs and there was no presence. Even his own party made fun of the fact that there was no presence of the leadership and no.
It's so light and day between the last administration and this, and Trump's start of his first year on this administration. Like, when Biden was in office, there was like no news. There was nothing in there. It's just everything was so quiet. But the economy, everything just started growing as like, I felt like nobody was doing anything, because Our leaders are telling us everything is fine. Like, I don't know. But then when Trump comes into his presidency, it's just like left and right, like things that he's doing. And there's so much fighting and bickering between left and right from it. But it's like, I can see what he's doing at least.
It's a constant circus, because if we strip away all of just rhetoric about and commentary about what he's doing, and you just read pure news, Donald Trump today met with this person and said this, there's still a lot that you have to keep up with. But now you're also keeping up with the takes. If Donald Trump doesn't really do anything consequential, if you hate on it, you're going to make this a big deal, and you have to keep up with, whoa, what's this? Or even Donald Trump himself will make a big deal out of things that aren't newsworthy. And you're like, what? Is this something I keep up with? Or so that's the thing. The circus is constantly happening. And as crazy as 2025 is, there's pockets and things of 2025 you have to take with you to say, how do we put these pieces together to really get a grasp of what might be on the forefront here in 2026? Because even at the end of this year, with global tensions and stuff, with Iran and stuff, this happened just post-Christmas, just a little while ago. So probably not anyone's mind. It's just a lot of this sets up to that.
2025 can be summed up as politics have taken a center stage in everybody's life, and all walks of life, and all the talk and conversation, and whether that's over the dinner table, or if it's on a podcast, or it's on the mainstream media news and whatever else. It's just around the clock, 24/7, social media, people just banging their heads against the walls and losing their minds over every single thing that's happening. And it's just been like tiresome, where it's been exhausted to the max.
That's Trump. That's why.
And again, Trump.
It was so quiet in the Biden era. But that's all I'm saying. News nowadays, it's something new every day, whether it's your right or your left. It's just some sort of news constantly about politics.
But it was like this, because I paid attention to politics for many, many years. And I paid attention to Trump's first term. And his first term was very similar to this too. It was constantly just turmoil and bickering and fighting back and forth. In his first term, for like the first 4 years, it was just constant drama. And then 4 years of sleepy Joe Biden. And you just don't hear anything. And then all of a sudden, you got to remember, Trump's first term ended with, the Summer of Love, George Floyd riots, COVID lockdowns, the entire craziness of the shutdown and everything.
And that's how that ended. January,
the world changed.
That was the January 6th too as well.
Yep. And then
the beginning
January
of that year.
The quote unquote insurrection, know, and that ending your presidency on that note. And then Joe Biden comes in, and then boom, like everything goes quiet, goes back into the dark for the next 4 years. And then as soon as Trump, jumps back on board again, he's the president again, it's just like first year, boom, one after the next, every single day, something new, something else. It's like wars everywhere, drama, Epstein files, whatever else. And we'll probably get into some of those recaps of some of this stuff. But but that's exactly what it is. And for me, I'm almost kind of like, I don't know. I just don't know where it's all coming from. I don't know where all the anger or all the frustration or the fear in particular is what I'm probably going to aim towards is now that Trump is president in the political sphere, is all these attacks and all this attention against Trump really driven by quote unquote, maybe a shadow government or someone else behind the curtains who are pulling this to say, Trump was never supposed to be president. This guy, he's not part of the, establishment. All the other presidents were all some kind of lawmaker and served in government of some kind. Trump was he's a entrepreneur, business mogul, and all of a sudden now he's the president. And maybe he's not part of the club, and he's done something where he's on the inside now and they can't stand that. So maybe that's where it's driven from, because I say this because I know people personally, like Dad, who never pays attention to politics ever in our entire lives. He's never mentioned a single thing about politics, but now is politically obsessed, like every single day. And dad is a perfect example because he's just one of those people who's just living like his everyday life, minds his own business, goes to work. Now he's retired, just does his own thing. But now he's in the entire world of politics, and somehow that reached and knocked on his door and got through to dad. And dad's just one of the millions of people that this has happened to. Yeah. So I don't know if there's something maybe more deviant lurking behind the curtains that's really pushing this forward, or maybe that's just the Trump factor. You know, he's a showman also, and he just knows how to run the media, so he can always stay relevant all the time. I don't know, but
it's all that too. Yeah. I very, very much so. Trump is stirring that pot, but that pot's bigger than perhaps what he is realizing too, that there's other stirring components to that same pot, that even if he's not stirring, there's other things that are penetrating households, whether they like it or not. Like that was one of the themes of one of our chats earlier this year, is that over politicizing has encroached on American households, whether they like it or not, and there's this overarching sentiment that the other side is so far from you, whoever that other side is. Yeah. And that people have this obsession to out debate people and prove people wrong. But to your point, like, how much of what's actually happening in the political sphere is consequential to people's everyday life? Like dad, for the first time, is becoming so very politically bent in a certain way. And yet anything and everything in the politics arena right now isn't materially impacting him at all. Like his living condition, everything's
pretty much the same.
Essentially the same.
Yeah.
Everything.
If not, maybe even improved.
Maybe we wouldn't know. And so what's a really good point too that you made about dad was dad's never been a political person or a left or right leaning he doesn't come from the traditional roots of understanding right leaning, left leaning. We didn't either. We're kind of just learning that in our adult lives. We weren't entrenched in this from a certain class of Americans that were very red on one side, or maybe a certain class that were blue, and then we grew up in that. We were just bounced around. Dad never had a political bent. So what he does is spend his hours watching a Hmong interpreter of news. And for a while, it took me, I couldn't determine whether the Hmong interpreter, the person serving in that role, who's just reading the news, who's reading it and translating things from English to Hmong.
Which side is he on, though?
Yeah, if he was taking a side, or if his service,
he's biased towards
maybe his service is just translating this to the Hmong community, just translating news to the Hmong community, and he's not editorializing, and he's not, like, I wasn't sure. And then some videos I kind of saw that he was editorializing maybe a little bit, or so he hasn't, or I haven't gotten an impression that he's made a blatant statement on that. Because some people are, when they say they're journalists, they're going to say, I'm not invested. I'm just going to report the news. You know, I'm not trying to, you know, I'm nonpartisan in this or whatever.
Yeah.
But what was fascinating was that in the translating role, just in the pure translating role, he only translated stuff from MSNBC.
Yeah.
It was primarily 90% that. Now, I don't know if it was like because he just relied on them and just was his go-to. And so, but just to translate MSNBC with very little editorializing or commenting and adding more color to it, just translating what MSNBC said into Hmong, hearing that was enough to drive dad like very emotionally crazy about the positions against Trump and everything like that, just because he got a translation of it.
Because that's the information he's getting.
I know.
There's no other translation for like the conservative side or Fox News or something like that. Though.
But that's the power of. But that's a good case example in the power of the influence of either you could call it propaganda, news, and I know today no one takes a lot of these legacy news entities and hold them to a high standard of journalism anymore. They just kind of realize people just are entertaining, really. Yeah. But even so, there's a lot of people that probably just think, oh, MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, doesn't matter. They're reputable ones. Whatever they say is reliable. People can't lie, so you're just going to read it. So if you translate it all, and if you just translate word for word what they're saying, and you coming in not knowing anything or the context of a situation, you just receive those words, and you're already you're indoctrinated.
Yeah.
And that's crazy.
Mm-hmm. What's crazy about the indoctrination too, as well, like before with politics, it's always been one of those liberal, conservative leaning, and some, it's kind of based on how you grew up, how you were raised, your values, and things of the sort. But in most cases, I would always imagine most of America was sort of what we call centralists, right? Like people kind of in the middle who have, you might be fiscally conservative, but then you're socially more liberal and, things of the sort. You kind of see viewpoints. Right? No, like nowadays when you're indoctrinated, you're literally on the fringe. You're like, you've been recruited to the team and you're on the outskirts of it. There's no central thing anymore. It's just my team versus your team, and we hate each other's guts so much. And I don't know.
We don't even know why.
We don't even know completely why.
But here's the talking points. Just know these talking points.
Yep. And if you ever listen to these debates, it's the same exact talking points. It's like on repeat. It's being parroted over and over again. And when I see, even people in the mainstream, like debate these same parroting talking points, you can tell there's no self-reflection. There's no conviction. There's only this idea of like, I heard this and I believe it now. So everything else this is a team and the side that I'm playing for. So everything I listen to and I hear must be in support of exactly this idea. I mean, I'm hoping that, and I would imagine many, many years from now, we're all going to look back at this time and just be like, why did we fight each other so much? Why did we hate Trump so much? Why did everybody hate Trump? And why did we fight each other and all this kind of stuff? Given if Trump isn't, the second coming of Hitler, and he doesn't destroy the whole world, if he just has, which most likely I would imagine just another term, like any other president, like his first term, where he finishes the country and maybe it's better shape, maybe it's worse shape, but he does the best he can. He does whatever. Maybe he makes mistakes along the way or whatever happens. If he doesn't leave the presidential office in shame, like complete shame, and he just like, I served my term, here's the next election, people are going to look back and just be like, why we were so angry at Trump again?
We were so worked up about something.
No.
What was it?
Just but then it really showcases like, okay, if Trump was the non-establishment candidate that somehow broke and figured out the cheat code to get in, it really showcases how they treat someone on the outside. Like that's what it tells me, and it's pretty sad that our political system is that down and dirty, because I see the shitty tactics that they use, especially with all the propaganda, with the news, with the constant, setting everything on fire all the damn time with Trump. And it's just kind of like, if that's coming from the establishment or the powers to be that, that is unnamed, then it really kind of showcases exactly how they treat someone who actually comes from the outside, which is pretty sad. And maybe it'll never happen again for a very, very long time. I don't know, but it's not pretty. It's really, really ugly.
It does open a trend though, because one could argue that that it's not because he's from the outside; it's because he's Trump. I could perfectly imagine a scenario where there's an outsider, but who's very political, statesman-like, but they're an outsider. Some might say, Ronald Reagan was kind of the outsider in his time and whatnot.
But there really hasn't been. Even Ronald Reagan himself started off as an actor, but he served, he served in a government official role. I forget what, but Trump is the first one that was completely on the outside.
Field. Yep. It was out of left field. And he was a entity that no one could comprehend and react to in real time. Yeah. And yet it's like,
they took him as a joke.
Yeah. This is a joke. Yeah. And it kept, and it was like the old Thanos saying, he was just the inevitable sort of taking place in that first term, because people couldn't, like, the fact that he made a mockery of the whole Republican debate or the primary for, and he was debating against Jeb Bush and all that. And it's like, this guy has no political background, and you would think he's the one that's nervous to be in their turf, their court and whatnot.
No, they had him at 2%. I remember him coming up on stage, and I'm like, oh my God, they got Donald Trump up on stage with all these politicians. Like, what the hell is going on here?
And they're just like, he's gonna make a fool of himself.
I know. I didn't take him seriously too, because I thought this was a joke kind of thing. Oh, he's just gonna run. He's at 2%, and then you're never gonna hear from him again. But then he came in, and I guess that's what the people wanted.
And whether you like him or not, because it's not about oh yeah, he's great or he shouldn't be there. It is such an anomaly to the system. And that's to your point that he's such a like a glitch in this whole power system that like isn't supposed to sort of be there. And but he's but it's not just like, okay, he's here, we don't like it, and soon he'll be gone. I think his presence has opened up something that changes the course of like politics isn't going to go back to just that statesman red blue presidency. I think it'll become more normal that to find more relevancy and potency, what Donald Trump revealed was that people want connectivity. That if the Democrats want their leader, it may not be from that blue Democratic side of traditional politicians. You need someone like an outsider who's who, because it opens the door. Because that's what at least Donald Trump in his presidency is introduced. Because before that, like no one would consider running for president unless you had that long history of being a senator
in the game already.
In the game, deeply within the game already. That's how they cultivate their new leaders who are already in the game. But Donald Trump opens that possibility that people like they want leaders that are on their side, but may not have to be your Gavin Newsom's or your Kamala Harris's or those political figures that are just traditionally that. They like some people made Stephen A. Smith as an option for the blue side candidate, and I thought that would actually be really a good battle. Like, imagine if J.D. Vance runs for presidency after this next year. It's J.D. Vance versus Stephen A. Smith. That would be actually interesting.
It'd be interesting.
Very interesting.
It would.
Especially with the debate too. And I think they would actually be talking about real stuff too.
But the challenge, and the reason why I find Donald Trump such an anomaly is to become the president, it takes more than money. Or else someone like Jeff Bezos was just buy his way into the presidency. I would say Elon Musk too, but he wasn't born in the U.S. I guess that rule still applies. You have to be born in the
Bloomberg
US.
tried. He had a ton of money, threw money at his campaign.
It's not money. You can have all the money in the world and still not win. So then is it popularity? Is it fame? Well, plenty of celebrities have attempted to throw their name in the hat to say, I have a brand and, I can reach, I have an influence, on a huge audience. But no, celebrity and popularity, it doesn't necessarily win you the presidency too. There's a secret recipe that Trump was able to exploit and figure out in order to achieve what he did. And it was literally the impossible. Like he broke the code. And that's why big Trump supporters, big MAGA people, they're like hardcore Trump supporters because they know that Trump broke the system. He did something that was not supposed to happen. And somehow, I don't know, if you didn't believe in that voting made a difference, that the elections were always rigged anyways, and that it was evidence that no, like maybe we do have a pretty fair system because somebody who wasn't supposed to get the presidency somehow got it. But then now that he has it, that's why they hate him so much. Well, at least the establishment hates him so much. And that's why his supporters support him so much because it's an anomaly. He was never supposed to get it. And then now that he's here,
and now he's on a second term now too.
I don't know how that can be repeated. I say this because I've seen, like I was a big supporter of Ron Paul, one of the best statesmen you can have, just completely consistent for his entire life. You can watch his old speeches when he was much younger and he would say the same exact words.
Yeah, he was very consistent.
Very consistent. And his voting record and who he was as a congressman is flawless. There isn't skeletons in the closets. He doesn't have any issues.
Bruno, right?
Well, there's times even when people want to dog Ron Paul, there's not much to dog.
There's
about.
nothing. He's the most cleanest and most down to earth, straight congressman you can imagine, and he didn't even have a chance. Didn't have a chance. They just completely blacklisted him. I mean, anyone who was the supporter of Ron Paul, like back in 2008 and 2012. Like knows the truth, like he had no chance. But someone like Donald Trump steps in the Republican ticket and figures it out and just wins it. Someone who's never served a single day in political office of any kind.
Wasn't Trump a Democrat though?
He was a registered Democrat.
Democrat. Donald Trump, someone to your point, also is almost the antithesis, the opposite of Ron Paul, meaning totally outside the system, no political history, not the type. that has, well, not a different kind of charisma than Ron Paul, a way different kind of charisma.
Yeah, way
The
different.
showmanship, everything. Where Ron Paul, great speeches, great consistency, but just didn't have the showman. Like he didn't have those abilities, the charisma, the rhetoric, and all that. And so Donald Trump's like the opposite of that.
Yeah, Donald Trump is the ruthless crash. Like I say whatever's on my mind.
There's no politically correctness. You know?
Yeah, I just say what it is, and I don't care, and this is me, and you know, completely, like you said, opposite of what Ron Paul represented. This kind of figure of, you know, of decency and respect and all that kind of stuff. You know, but again, Trump used that to his favor, and again, I can't tell you personally myself exactly what would hit it on the nail that I think made Trump such a power horse that got him to not only win, you know, the presidency one time, but his second term. I mean, again, and maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe that's something we can look up. I don't know any other president. And maybe there was like one or two who has ever was president, skipped the 4 years and then became president again.
There's one instance, but I could probably look it up. I think there's,
but it's extremely rare for something like that to happen, you know. So and again, with 2025 and him winning the election, going into 2025, it was already like engines are rolling, you know. Get your engines started. Let's get this game started, you know. Time to roll 2025. Let's see what happens.
Because we were so accustomed to nothing really happening, nothing in the news, no events or anything like that. But right when Trump came in, bam, things just started happening from day one. You know, he just, I'm going to put a bunch of this and do a bunch of these things. And I'm just thinking, man, damn, he's actually doing everything that he said that he was going to, you know, run for. So,
well, I mean, when it started, you know, and he became the president, I paid very close attention, obviously. I'm sure everybody did too, as well, to his cabinet pickings. And I thought it was very historic.
Yeah.
The amount of Democrats that he brought in, from RFK Jr. to Tulsi Gabbard. And these are very prominent roles within his cabinet. These aren't just like, yeah, you take care of this little thing on the side. But no, he gave them significant roles.
Yeah.
And that hasn't happened too often too as well, where you're actually like working on both sides of the aisle to have different people to come in and serve underneath you in your cabinet. So I thought this was going to be historic, and I still believe it's historic. I still believe that there's still so much to be accomplished. His first year as president, as I paid attention to everything that was happening almost on a month-to-month basis, and you know, just to see exactly everything that has occurred, it's been groundbreaking as far as your first year as president, the amount of accomplishments and things that he's done. And again, you might not be necessarily someone who agrees with a lot of those things. I certainly have my reservations on certain of the decisions and things that have been made, but I can't help but say like a lot of shit is being done. I haven't seen it personally trickle down yet. I haven't seen it like on our lives, you know, where we're at.
It materially impacts us.
It hasn't materialized into something tangible for everyday people, but maybe I just haven't seen or felt the true impact of it yet. But again, it's only been 1 year down, an exhausting year, but let's just see exactly where the cards fold, like going into the next year. And maybe it takes time for things to unfold itself and really, really see the effects of those things. It's like moving a big, gigantic ship, you know, you can't see those effects until later on. Well, I hear there's a lot of money being made off the tariffs. And again, you know, as consumers, maybe we're just the ones paying for it, and it's just another tax on us, and cost of goods are still up. I mean, I haven't felt like at least my paychecks are going as far, you know, as I hope it would be.
And that's hard for the president to really make that impact, but people have to feel the impact, the payoff. What's the payoff of this thing?
Yeah.
You know, this thing that we're all living through, that we decided to do this together as a community or whatever. And
so, I mean, I don't know exactly. I mean, what else is there? And I could probably go on all night, but like Epstein. Okay. Well, then we have the whole entire Epstein debacle that's going on. I mean, Epstein has pretty much taken center stage also in the political realm. It's been a center of conversation ever since the inception of who's on the Epstein list, and now perhaps Trump can be indicated that he could be on the Epstein list, and then now there's an obsession with getting this Epstein list, and then they dropped the ball on releasing it earlier this year. I don't know if you guys recall back in January with Pam Bondi and all of that stuff, and then that's been on the top of people's minds, you know. And it's just kind of like, to this day, we don't know much more than what we knew before.
Why do they keep teasing it out? Like, you only get like 3 episodes every season or something like that. That's what they're doing.
Wasn't there recent stuff that was released? Because I couldn't keep up with some of that.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a like, I forget how many. It was thousands of pages got released.
That was like tens of thousands. Or something like.
There's a lot of documentations from court cases and everything that released, and photos were released. I actually went through every single photo.
The recent release.
Yeah.
You went through those photos?
Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody on X, basically, they did a pretty good job, but they just compiled it into like a photo viewer, and you can just go through every one. I actually went through every single photo that was released, at least at that point.
Yeah.
A lot of it's just pictures of his home in New York, and then also photos of inside his home and on the island and stuff like that. Yep. Yeah. And then a lot of them, it was, you know, there was like Michael Jackson, a lot of Bill Clintons, a lot. And then
just Bill or
just Bill. There's no Hillary.
Or just any of the other.
But Bill seems to show up at a lot of different parties or something like that. You know, the big controversy one was him in the pool, you know, and there's someone else that got redacted, their faces covered. There's this meme going around now where it's got like, you know, all these girls in like the, you know, in Moe's Tavern, and Homer Simpson's the only one there, but Homer Simpson's face has been traded out as Bill Clinton's face, but all the girls are all redacted, you know, that's in the room. But it seems like that's the only thing that was released, and the only thing that seems more incriminating and damaging has been more on the Democrat side. So a lot of people are like, oh, well, they basically washed everything, and there's tons of pages that got redacted too as well. So it's just kind of like, well, if you're going to release it, then release all of it. You know what I'm saying? Get it all out there at this point in time. So there would be no questions or no of this back and forth anymore.
We're still got to cut it out, edit it out.
Just the groundworks, give you a little bit.
I understand some concepts behind the redaction piece, why things get redacted for certain reasons, for security, for protecting person's identity, etc., because it's maybe not material to the actual story. You don't need to know who that person's name is to understand what's going on here. But it gives the power to the redactor to choose what those things are, you know, what your need to know ought to be.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. And we'll never know, or it's going to be a lot of these still, because they're still redacted, a lot of it's redacted. It still leaves it open for the possibility that there's a lot of valuable information.
And then all the people that are involved, like Pam Bondi, the intelligence agencies, when they're on, you know, in front of a committee, when they're asking questions, they're always asked the questions, did Donald Trump, you know, did you correspond with them, work with them when you guys released this? And they'll go, no comment, you know, then it just creates more drama, because it's just kind of like, well, then what's going on here? You know, like what's in the midst of all that, you know? But at the end of the day, it's also like, it's common sense to think that, you know, if Donald Trump was on the list, you know, then it's kind of like, maybe he is, but if he was, then why go through this whole mess? You know, it's like, why hire, you know, Dan Bongino and Dave Patel? And
isn't Bongino gone now, though?
Yeah, Cash Patel. I think Bongino stepped down. He's stepping down. I don't know the drama between it, but I guess him and Pam Bondi are having issues or something like that. But it's not pretty, you know. Everything looks pretty ugly. And again, we still don't know much more than what we knew before when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein, you know. So
absolutely.
That's just going to be something that's going to remain in the dark forever.
Yeah. Well,
there'll be another
there's a next release, because that's what I'm trying to understand too. Because if so much was released earlier in the year, then what's this release about? And what's the justification of why this was released way later? Why wasn't all this stuff released back in the original release? Or I'm just not maybe up to speed with some of those things, but
yeah, I don't know either. And one of the big questions I always wonder is, like, if you have like names that have been, you know, accused of, why not just go out and arrest these people? Like, what's up with these low releases and explaining this to the public? Like, let's just say, for example, Bill Clinton was being accused of sexual misconduct in any sort of way with a minor at all with these things. And a lot of these victims are actually naming names because they are supposedly. Why not just go after them? If Donald Trump is on that, just go after him. You know, like there's a lot of people, prosecutors and you know, and names that are being brought up. And it's like, if you have that information, what is up with like, well, we need to release it to the public and nothing happens? Like, what's the point of all that? If we're not going to go after these people, then why release it anyways, for one? And then at the same time, why do you need to release it to go after these people? Just go after them, you know? Like, if I went out and I raped a child today, you think it's like, oh, well, we can't release his name. No, police would just come knocking on my door and they'd come arrest me and I'd be done with, you know? Like,
if they have the names, and they don't have to release it to the public yet, but if they have the names and if they have enough evidence that the crime has taken place. But I think that's what they lack, though. They might have all these names, and the names themselves are enough to be consequential. To put a case together to say that a crime took place requires way more of a bar of prosecution, a bar to pass to say that this is worthy of that crime. You have to have way more. But everything just comes down to that. The drama lies in the names and the people's identities. Because even if nothing happened, the fact that your name is already on this is already huge already.
You're already tarnished no matter what.
That's the implications, the domino effect. And if I were to venture to guess, a lot of the real underlying drama behind the whole Epstein reveal probably has less to do with the associations with pedophilia or partaking in sexual. It has probably more so to do with something else we're not even anticipating. There's some sort of association geopolitically where there's something of high risk and high compromise, and just to be associated with Epstein's side activities has huge implications. And so I think people are insisting perhaps the secrecy lies in the fact people don't want their names to be revealed, that they were part of partaking, and it may not even be that. It's something else that's dark that has just happened to be associated within that network, that nexus of deep activity, deep state, crazy puppeteering activity. So in that nexus, they're sort of associated. So they're just tangled up with each other, I think. And there's probably some, a lot of people's names who did partake in all that shit too, pedophilia and all that stuff. But there's probably a lot of people maybe associated, caught up in that web of a nexus with other things and other countries and other key players, and that's why there's just so much weirdness and even the shifting opinions and sentiments of even Kash Patel, who was at one point gung-ho that there's so much more to this, and now he's on the inside, at least in my perspective, has felt like, there's nothing to see here now. And and that doesn't mean that like I'm accusing him of like, oh, he's just hiding a lie or something. It's just more like all this is strange, because we also remember in the middle of the year of everything happening, the Doge piece, that was a big talking point. The whole uniting with Elon Musk, but then how that divorce happened so publicly too, like out of nowhere. That's the roller coaster of the year. That
is on the list.
The fact that Elon Musk was an advisor doing things for the country. Some people are saying, "Wow, get rid of fraud," and that's great. There's get rid of abuse. And then some people are saying like Elon Musk is a Nazi because he's eliminating jobs. Blah blah. No matter how you feel, then you have this drama that unfolds publicly, and then their divorce happens like publicly, and you have the Epstein, brought into that too. So there's just this, again, it's just what it's hard to like make sense of how that fits into it.
It reminds me of when Doge was brought up and everything like that, and they first was introduced. It was, for me, I thought it was like brilliant, like a third party, stepping in and actually doing a true audit on what's happening to all the money that's going on in government, and all the fraud and the waste and everything, and all that shit was getting exposed. And then the backlash against it, where they are accusing Elon Musk of being a Nazi because he was going like that. I mean, that was like all over the news for a long ass time. There was like Teslas being targeted and vandalized like all around the US, and then even down to dealerships that were being like firebombed and all that kind of stuff. And the amount of crazy that happened against all of that. And at the end of the day, it was like Doge was a very good pilot to something, but it never really accomplished what everybody was so hopeful for it to happen. And when it ended, the program, at least Elon Musk stepped away, it ended really ugly, obviously accusing Donald Trump of being on the list and publicly and all that kind of stuff. And then he stepped out of the picture of politics. And it happened immediately right after he was campaigning. I remember in Wisconsin, he was wearing a cheese on his head or something. They completely lost in Wisconsin, completely bad. And then shortly after that, it was just kind of like, he needed to step out of the political realm. The Tesla stock was like plummeting. Remember at this time, even Governor Tim Walz was like making fun of it and stuff like that. It was a good time to buy it.
Just in my day, I usually brighten up my day by looking at the Tesla stocks, and it makes me feel better about these. Come on now, man.
Tim Walz, if you're listening, tables have turned. And then, when things have turned that way with the entire immigration and the talk of the news now being Minnesota. But then going back to just Elon Musk, it was just that whole debacle of they going up and down. And now Elon Musk is back on the team and he's funding a lot of things, getting prepared for midterms coming up now too as well.
So I'm not up to speed. So what do you mean by he's back on the team?
So
I haven't seen a public formal sort of reconciliation, or I saw that they shook hands at Charlie Kirk's funeral. And I don't know if that was real or not, but I guess it's real. So there's some sort of reconciliation. But it's just hard to see. How do you reconcile with someone after saying he's the president was on the Epstein list?
Yeah.
Like, how do you just we're good, bro? Like, my bad for saying that. Okay, it's like there's something going on with.
Maybe it could have been something where he had to go out like in a bad note against Trump because of the shit that he was going through, and with Tesla stock and all that stuff. You kind of have to put that image to kind of just get Trump out of view, your situation, so that way you're not being hated on and doing all that stuff.
To lighten up his stink with Trump stink, just to kind of
ease
him up a little bit back into the public eye.
They had to do it in order for, because otherwise, if he would just. If you say, okay, I'm done with my thing with Doge here. Thank you, Trump. I'm getting a war for it and like that. People would still hate him and stuff like that.
And the stock would still maybe suffer.
Yeah, so it's almost like it was a plan. Let's get into a fight with each other.
Planned public divorce.
I know what you can say. You can say that I'm on the list. Yes. That's not going to hurt anybody because I already know who's on the list. And but I feel like that was probably why he did that, though.
That does make a lot of sense because I think it was to his benefit that they had a public ugly divorce to sort of lift him out of
him being
so much hate, because even many leftists who are so diehard, I hate Elon Musk now, we're kind of now like, oh, I don't know how I feel about him now. Now I kind of like him. He's like, come on now, man. But that's why you needed that the constraint of all that tight pressure, hatred sort of elevated a little bit.
That's how
lifted off.
But I was pretty disappointed, and I do want to call where the left was correct that Doge did not go too far enough. I wanted Doge to really audit the Pentagon because they failed another audit again and again and again, and the amount of money that gets poured into the military budget is just bonkers, and no one knows that. So a lot of the supposedly humanitarian funding and auditing and all that kind of stuff came back and was shut down. Obviously, USAID being the largest recipient on that end. That was kind of shut down.
The USAID too. Whether that was true or not, that was just ridiculous. Where our money was going to internationally for these causes too.
The programs.
It sounded so made up, but at the same time, like, why would you make up something like that at the same time?
Well, then now seeing everything in hindsight, do you now say from a perspective that those programs ended? My understanding is Doge is sort of dissolved. Like they did their job and now they're not like actively doging anything,
because that's what they said. The purpose of their job is to come in, do what they need to do, and not exist.
Because at the same time, do what you're supposed to do. So then you have to now ask, looking at it from a 360 view, like, what did you accomplish as Doge then? Because it may look like Doge came in was just to use as an instrument to target programs or whatever they didn't like. In the spirit of cost reduction, fraud, waste and abuse, all that stuff, and reduction. But really the turnout was that It was just specific designated things that they were already. But would they need to have Elon Musk and an outsider special advisor to do that? Like, couldn't they just done it themselves without?
Because the government within itself, I mean, it's like, what are you going to really get if you're going to audit yourself? You know, you really want a third party on the outside, someone else to step in to take a look at the books, you know, to see exactly what's going on. I love the entire idea. I think that every single president, all the way down to, you know, like governors,
State level
yeah, needs to do it. We see this exactly what's happening in Minnesota. But my problem with Doge is, if you're gonna do one, do all. You know, do the Pentagon, do every single department within the government, and allow them the ability to be able to do it. Give them the resources, the funding, and the support to be able to do everyone. You can't stop it after this, you know, like
your work isn't done yet.
Yeah, well, exactly. And it's not fair, you know, because you can't just pick up this side and say, we're going to,
that's the point,
uncover everything underneath these books, but this side, we'll just leave that in the shadows.
And that's the point. And that's the other.
And that's why a lot of them were upset.
If you have upset about it, because if you're in the spirit of, we need to get rid of unnecessary programs, and there's like USA programs you didn't like, let's do that. But then why did it stop? But now it does introduce the idea that there's a selection of power to determine what isn't worth it, what needs to get rid of. And then that's where the spirit of Doge then fizzles. Because I guess maybe we just need to get an update on it. But my understanding is it's just sort of like it did its job and now it's, but then what's also the net bottom effect too? Because I'm looking at, like, I was looking at coming into this, some tariff updates, what's happening with that. And I'm not an economist. I'm not anything in that regard, but still, we all know that the big numbers are deficit, 1.8 trillion, et cetera, et cetera.
The deficit?
Or
that's a lot more than that.
No,
or I meant like the total deficit is probably a lot more, but I think like this year.
This year,
fiscal year, I think is that number. But my point was that, like, I'd like to see that too. Then Doge came in and impacted the bottom line, like this, and I maybe I've yet to see that. So, or maybe that's yet to be determined or revealed, but I haven't seen that. When they were comparing the impact of tariffs, the benefit it had on bringing revenue to the government, a lot of the criticism behind it, it's like it's still such a small percentage of our deficit this year, though. So it's like, what's the point of all that? But then where's Doge in that too? Where's like,
but I mean, like there's supposedly investments in the U.S. with tariffs and the amount of money that's being brought in, and the different companies and corporations that are investing within the U.S. now. Where we're talking trillions and trillions of dollars. We're talking billions and hundreds of billions of dollars that maybe Doge has done. But I agree with you. Like, I want to see what happens to the bottom line. Like, did we pay off a lot of deficit from it? How much money was saved in preventing those programs to continue and not releasing those funds? Where's that money going? Is that, you know, we were promised even like a kickback check, you know, like a $5,000 Doge check, all this stuff. Like where is this all coming from? And what is the ultimate consequence of all these actions that have taken in place? And I think it's very legitimate to ask those questions. A lot of people have been waiting for it. And that's exactly what the left has been complaining about. And the left was like, you guys think that Doge is good. No, Elon is fattening his own pockets. He's getting his own money. They're only targeting certain programs that they don't like, and they're never going to touch the Pentagon. And I'm like, no, let them do their business. Let them figure it out. But then it ends up, they were right, you know? And I have to give credit where credit's due, where it is kind of obvious that they were right. Doge ended, never even attempted to do the Pentagon. We don't even know exactly where all that money is that was found, made, saved, where the tariff money is bringing all these investments that are in, all this extra tariff money. I mean, all that I've seen really is Donald Trump on Christmas, you know, announced that, you know, what is it, the freedom money for the active duty members of the military and stuff like that. So they received some of that money back. And I even heard some controversy that the money that was being used to pay these soldiers weren't even coming from like tariffs or, you know, any money that the government has made. It was actually coming from their own budgets that was designed for the military anyways, or something like that, where it was being pulled from something else. So there's already controversy in that, but
I hear that it was only partially funded by tariffs, probably a small percentage of tariff revenue. That contributed to it.
Because the thing is it's kind of accepted and widely known. I haven't seen it really affect that much in regards to the cost of goods. Everything has been pretty stagnant. You know, in fact, I've seen some prices like energy, like gas and stuff like that have dropped a lot, you know, but when it comes to tariffs, as far as cost of goods, everything has kind of remained pretty flat, pretty neutral, at least from my point of view. When I go shopping, it's still too expensive in my eyes.
Yeah.
The cost of living is still too high. But everyone predicted that when Trump starts rolling in these tariffs, like it was going to go through the roof, that nothing was going to be affordable anymore, and they were, you know, obviously
It would
wrong in
crash
that
the
case.
economy.
Exactly.
Yeah, it would crash the economy. And
But everything is still rolling smooth. But then the idea is, okay, as consumers, we're paying the tariffs, and now the government's making all this money with the tariffs. Like, where's that money though? You know, like what is that money being used for? You know,
that was one of the things, you guys, like, that I was looking over before sitting down and chatting about this, because that was one of those month to month, week to week reveals, was Liberation Day, you know, in April. And, you know, again, not coming from an economist background, you have to like sort of learn the context before you come into this to have at least some sort of general reasoned assessment on whether you are for or against it. And it's still complex. It's not like it's beyond a pro-Trump, anti-Trump position to say, I'm for Trump, so tariffs are great, or I'm against Trump, so they're obviously going to go wrong. I think it's way more complicated than that. But at the same time, it's just like, you're right. Like, all we heard was tariffs, it'll be, you know, beautiful. And then you hear the justification of reciprocal tariffs, and you understand the context of history of how the U.S. has always had a trade deficit with countries as a post-World War II remedial effort just to help out the world, I guess. But then in exchange, U.S., you know, had the U.S. dollar as the new gold standard. But yeah, I didn't understand that. It was only shortly after all the tariffs were released that the Treasury Court, Federal Treasury Court, found it to be illegal, or they said we're stopping the tariffs. And then there's a Supreme Court or a higher court then said, like, we're appealing it for now, so continue with the tariffs, implementing them, getting the revenue. But they're going to decide just this month or next month on whether it's illegal or not. And there's no like,
you're still trying to figure that out.
Yeah, this is unprecedented because we already have all this money. Like they said that in this time period, I have some total tariff revenue so far, fiscal year 25, 195 billion. That's how much money was raised from this. And then even that figure is a little conservative, because 151 of that 195 collected in just the second half of FY20. These things took a while to get rolling and started collecting. We collected 195 billion, but it's like a small percentage. But what's going to happen to that money? But then what's going to happen if the Supreme Court says, yeah, this is illegal? There's this process of returning all those funds, and that's a nightmare. Yeah, it's actually like that would be. There's no logistical. It's a logistical nightmare. Like they're in this weird snafu right now. Like there's this. They have all the money. They just continue to do it. But there's still whoever they charged it from, all the commerce entities and whoever paid those tariffs, you know, like, but there's no system to do all that.
Didn't they already pass the buck down to the consumers, and ultimately the consumer is the one who already paid for it? So then those guys would make a big bank dollars. I'm not saying every single one of them. A lot of them ate it. A lot of them ate the cost and they paid the tariffs themselves. But a lot of them also raised cost on goods and passed it on to the consumers. So they're actually making a gigantic profit off of it.
That's what I mean. It's leading up to be this very complex, confused, chaotic mess, because
why don't they just give it all to us?
Yeah, like what are the implications if the Supreme Court does deem it as illegal, you know, and say that? Because you know, reading into this, I had to read into the fact that the reason Trump was able to even pull this off is you have to invoke, as a presidential power, invoke a reason for it, some sort of substantiation for why you are implementing all this. I just heard about the Liberation Day. I just thought the president just said, here's what we're doing. But he had to actually use the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. And he has to say that, and which gives the president authority in some circumstances to regulate a variety of economic transactions following a declaration of national emergency. So the idea is that you have to create the case that there's an emergency to then invoke that act. And that's why that court said you're meddling with the economy on a global scale, and you're trying to. It's a reach to sort of use that act as the reason. You're saying that our country's in a state of emergency, and so. But then they just said, okay, for now we'll appeal it, continue to collect it, and then we'll figure it out later, and then the Supreme Court will rule a final decision. There's this craziness about how all that sort of unfolding. That brings back to another key theme of 2025 was lawfare, because that's all what this is.
Mm-hmm.
Trump finds himself in a situation, wants to execute something, but the executive powers only have so much power. But they have some powers, if you invoke them at certain times, gives you like an access card to do something. That's if you substantiate that I can do that. Trump critics will say he's reaching for these acts to say that we need to do this and do that. These are like wartime sort of laws and things, and you're imposing that and using the justifications just to have your way, or et cetera. Mm-hmm. And then those that are supportive of these things look at the outcome, look at why we need it, look at the economic benefit, but also perhaps agree with the notion that there is a sense of state of emergency with the that would substantiate that. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, I found the pattern interesting because he did the same thing in March with targeting Venezuelans here and there was the lawfare that happened there where a judge blocked that. And the reason Trump did that was because he also invoked another like wartime act. Enemies Act, you know?
Like that.
And then you start to see like, if you're critical of Trump, so like, are you just like reaching for, you having an assistant say, I want to get this accomplished. Can you find me a law or loophole that allows me to do this? And it almost might seem like that. I'm not saying that's the case. Because a part of you, myself, you would say that, you know, the Alien Enemies Act to deport alleged members of the Venezuelan gang, you have to substantiate that this gang is a part of the statehood of Venezuela and that they're in cahoots and now they're here and you have to do all that. And so when the judge blocked it and then they talked about this is all lawfare, you guys are fighting each other via technical rules and laws and everything. That's the craziness that I don't know what to make of any of this. Like, because I'm not going to try to be like, I'm pro-Trump. Whatever he does is perfectly right. I hate Trump, so he's just trying to be racist to residents. I know that there's way more layers even under beneath that we aren't privy to. You know, every story that happened in 2025 was a nugget of something that we have a sliver of understanding, but layers of actually shit that's happening behind the scenes, the power struggle, and then you have the people that get a little story and they fight each other over the interpretations behind that.
Yeah. Because I mean, you take Trump out of the picture, just, you know, because let's leave Trump out because we don't want any bias. You could just say it could be any President A, you know, and if they're in and they're invoking all these different presidential powers with all these different acts, you want to checks and balances that's in place. So then the executive branch doesn't come too powerful. Right. Yeah. But then also at the same time, what the president represents is a mandate by the people. The people vote him in to or her to make and enact changes on the will of the people.
Yeah, that's what the executive function is.
Yep, that's the executive function. Yeah. So then there's this balance between, okay, we want to give the president their powers so they can actually move the country in the right direction and of where we want it to go. But also at the same time, we want to have a checks and balance in place so the executive presidential, you know, statehood doesn't become too powerful and just take over everything. And they become a monarch, they become a king. And then people do the No Kings March, you know. And then that's kind of what the No Kings thing was about, you know, is like this balance between a government and an entity of the president who's coming in and basically invoking their will upon whatever they want, whatever they feel the need to do. And then if you're anti-Trump, then you're saying, no, we don't have a kings. We have a checks and balances in place that we have to be able to push back on it with the legal things and so forth there. So, yeah, exactly what you're saying. The lawfare between and battle between everything on both sides has been kind of centralized in regards to where the country's been moving back and forth. It's always going to be at some kind of stalemate that goes into like a long proceeding of back and forth of trying to figure out, is it possible to do this? Is it not possible? And then I had no idea there's a potential of refunding tariffs. I don't even know how that even works.
I already just assumed tariffs were just the new reality, that nothing was still up to discussion. I thought the president, when he introduced it, roll it out like it is what it is. I didn't know that he
The
invoked.
president sat down with
Yeah.
like world leaders everywhere
Yeah, give me a
already,
call, let's
getting
make
the
deals.
negotiations, shaking hands, and like, we got a deal. That's it. I'm raising it back up. I'm dropping back down.
know.
You know,
I didn't know what was behind the scenes in terms of him needing to formally invoke an act, a wartime act, to like then play it out. And then I didn't know behind the scenes that it got, it's like sort of pending for review, and it's still coming up. Their decision's coming up still. So it's like, I don't know. The way you view it can be interpreted in many ways. Because if I remember hearing about the lawfare and the judge that was deemed to be like heroic because he stood up against Trump to use the law to block the Enemies Act and to stand up for social justice rights. And then if you look at Trump as someone like, you're just reaching for some sort of wartime act to get your way here. You're just picking on Venezuelans. So then you can see and you can identify with the judge and like, see, Trump has done this on other occasions, like reaching for these weird things to justify his way. And at the same time, when I also then connected the dots to that happening earlier this year to what's happening today in Venezuela, in terms of all the controversy with that, and I didn't know like all the inner ties Venezuela currently has with Iran, Russia, and China right now, like, and that leading into their presidency, because of them being in cahoots and because of them, Venezuela being in close ties with Iran, they have like an alliance and unity. And knowing that, and then knowing that in the past presidency, a ton of Venezuelans came over too. So then that puts your security measure at risk, and you think we need to target this, and that's why we're justifying it like that. The point being is that I don't know what to think anymore.
Yeah,
That's
really.
the thing. That's the point being.
that psyop is strong.
I don't know what to think anymore because it's like, were there Venezuelan? Wasn't it the Venezuelans that were eating the dogs and the cats, right?
No, those are Haitians.
Haitians.
No,
I didn't know that. Sorry. But there was groups of Venezuelan gangs and then documented
gangs.
Venezuelan gangs that actually committed crimes. The crimes aren't made up. People were killed. People were harmed. So
people were charged.
Yeah.
They actually had to go to court and everything.
Now, does it reach to the level of the Enemies Act? I don't know. It seems like you're reaching here, Trump. But knowing that we had a 4-year stint where we had open gates to anyone who wanted to come to the country, and that a ton of Venezuelan, a lot of Venezuelan people, but not just general people, families. No, like even Venezuela today, I didn't know their president right now isn't recognized by a lot of the world because he said he won the 2024 election, Nicolas Maduro, I think, but he has no evidence of it. But he's like, I'm the president, and so he's really close with Putin. Venezuela's really close to Iran and all that. So you just know that all that was happening, and now there's a flood, and that Maduro, who's claimed the president, also has close association with those gangs that were on the list that were targeted as. So it's like, all that stuff behind the scenes too. So I don't know what to believe anymore. Like, I just don't know.
So is that another Cuban Missile Crisis type of thing?
That's what people are saying. It's like the modern day version.
Close to the U.S.?
Yeah, it's modern day version because it's been a long time since anything happened in our like hemisphere. Like U.S. has always been comfortable on our side of the house.
Yeah.
All the dramas on Middle East, all that side of the world. And even all that drama in the Middle East, all the aftermath, the immigrants, they went to Europe and everything. We're big, but now we have, when they talked about the heightened situation off the coast of Venezuela, I'm like, I don't have enough time to keep up with this, but what's going on here? But when did Venezuela get on the map? Like I didn't know that they had such close ties with.
I didn't know.
So it's
I didn't even know they had close ties with them. All I saw on the news is just like boats are being shot down because they were thought of as being smuggling.
The drug boats.
That's all I heard of Venezuela, but
that's the surface level.
I'm sure there's a lot more to that.
I mean, you remember when Trump made the announcement about giving doing the Merry Christmas and giving the funding? Remember, he said he was doing a big announcement. I remember that day Tucker Carlson went publicly and said this could be a very good chance that Trump is going to make the announcement that we're going to war with Venezuela. And that was what everybody was anticipating. Yeah, everybody was anticipating that, and that's why there was so much coverage of that because everyone was on their toes to see exactly Trump's big message and news for that night
addressed
was
to the nation,
which was a big nothing burger, and then it turned out there's no war, no nothing. But that was always in question right there, because it was thought the declaration of war to Venezuela was going to be announced or something like that. So there is like there's a lot bubbling in that area, and then the whole drug boat thing. That thing throws me off so badly. Like I don't know what's going on.
But still, whatever to get rid of the drugs, though. I've seen too many videos and shit like that of people on fentanyl and stuff, like cities just plagued with all these addicts and stuff. That's
the material effect. That's the real material effect of external global influence or whatever, wherever the drug's coming from. That's the aftermath of it.
Yeah, there's so many sides of the coin, and you even you look at that situation under a microscope, like, is it a good deed to make sure these drug boats are getting blown up? Yes, but how do we know that they're drug boats? There's got to be some kind of sense of where the public, at least, will understand that, hey, no, those were drug boats. They're protecting us, because these, the fentanyl's gonna get into our country and kill a bunch of people, so they have to target that. But we don't know. They could just be fishermen boats. They could just be whoever. But the weird part too is, Pete Hegseth, he's the one in charge of all of this. They make it so public. Also, every single day they're always posting online, and it says in the video it says declassified, and then it shows like this boat driving, boom, and it blows up in the ocean waters. And there's been so many videos that have been released, and I'm just kind of like, well, they're being extremely transparent about this. They're not like blowing these things up for the sake of blowing these things up. And, and again, why would they also just be randomly blowing up fishermen, off the coast, like
there's way more going on.
There's way more going on that we don't know what's
supposed
going
to
on.
Buy that story. And maybe it could be some of that, but there's way more layers behind what's actually happening. Because if you don't keep up, you don't know. And if you don't know, then you wouldn't know that the close ties Venezuela does have with Russia, with Iran, and the fact that, like, you're talking about how open they are, P. Hegseth, with some of that stuff. Like, it's kind of interesting that Marco Rubio's office, there's currently a $50 million reward directly from his office for the information leading to the rest of
Maduro.
They're the president. So it's kind of weird that that's the case, that we have we're trying to arrest the
supposedly
the alleged president.
Yeah.
So that's how unstable the state of affairs is right now, where it's like, he's supposed to be, he sees himself, he's the formal leader of a country. I'm an official leader. I have, because of that ranking or statesmanship, you come to the table for negotiations or whatever. Now, like,
it's like China saying, hey, $100 million bounty if whoever brings me back Trump's head. What? You can't just declare something like that?
But I just found that fascinating. I didn't know that there was, and it's public. It's not like
Yeah, but did the Nicolas Maduro, did he actually like campaign and run to be presidency, or
I think so.
He was the actual candidate that they vote on? Okay.
Yeah, like he actually ran for it, but there's no evidence. Like, he just claimed it and said, "Okay, I won," or he's never produced.
He was
evidence.
The one who claimed it.
Yeah, like that's my understanding. That's what I read up on. That's my understanding, that I don't know what their bar for proving presidency has been in the past. Like why does he get the opportunity to say, "Yeah, I counted them, I win," or whatever? Shouldn't it be like a third party or something? Because there's essentially the idea is that there's no evidence of him winning. He won't produce it, and a lot of countries don't acknowledge him as a formal leader, and that just raises flags with the state of affairs of what's going on down there, because it's.
And then, how do we as our own country judge that? Like we can't judge their elections. Like look at our elections. We have so many issues. Like what if I don't know, Russia and China go, we don't even recognize Donald Trump, because we know you guys' elections, or Joe Biden. The 2020 election was rigged. We're not going to even acknowledge it. What about Kamala Harris being nominated as the Democrat leader? Like, how did that happen? And, like, that's the same thing. It's just, you just get anointed, She never went through a primary. She never got, voted in. It was just Joe Biden stepping down and then over a weekend saying, well, I'm going to pass the torch to Kamala. And everybody just got on board, you know? And it was like, the people didn't vote for that. And that wasn't a democratic election through a primary process and she got selected and elected or whatever. So I don't know how we're in the position to judge other countries. And
But it's not the fact that we're judging it. It's just the fact that he's claiming that he's president without showing any evidence. That's like a true no kings.
It's kind of like that's a true no kings, right? Like,
yeah, that's what you would, go out there and protest no kings for, because he's claiming presidency without any kind of thing. But we're not judging it.
It's more like now that a president is a president, how countries interact with each other, how they meet with unions. Your role serves as that power. Yeah, the ambassador. The president of this nation meets with this president of that. But who are we meeting with? And we don't know the state of their country too. I don't know if their own country feels like, yeah, we're happy to have him, or they feel threatened too. I don't know that. There's probably a small constituency for him, but the fact that it was just that it's not just like we're picking on your process. It's more just like I'm the leader now, and
I'm the leader now,
and he's close with Putin and
look at me, I'm the leader.
They recently, Venezuela and Iran signed a 20-year cooperation agreement that covered oil, industrial projects, on defense. I didn't know Venezuela and Iran had much to do with each other. And now we're talking about the conversations with Benjamin Netanyahu and Trump and all their dealings with how they're going to deal with Iran's recent rhetoric, late December. Like, I'm just getting up to speed with a lot of this, but Iran, their leader saying, we're essentially at war with U.S. and they're posturing towards this war sentiment. And Trump and Netanyahu met, and I'm not sure exactly what's going on, but you can everything's leaning towards secondary follow-up attacks to Iran. And again, there's the conversation about Israel, U.S. Now that opens its own can of worms.
Yeah.
Israel now with Venezuela. Oh, I mean, not Israel, but Iran and Venezuela being like, I didn't know there was that relationship. With Venezuela also recently being re-upped and rearmed a lot militarily by Russia too. So it's like there's a lot of the chess pieces moving at play, and it's just kind of like 2025 was crazy for the chaotic mess of not sharing social media, not sharing how to believe things, like the psyop. 2026, and I don't want to say this, it's scary, but 2026 is where you feel the reverberating effect of that. The next stage of tariff implementation, the next stage of aftermath of ICE, immigration, aftermath of now the global stuff.
And then, of course, midterms. Midterms is coming up there too as well. And
midterms will be huge, yeah.
That's going to be, everything is going to come down to midterms too as well. Either Trump, wins another huge landslide mandate where this keeps going, or else he gets pushed back. And Democrats fight back, and there's huge implications of big consequences on either side of it, so that there's a lot on the line that they're going to fight back and forth. So that's going to be a big thing to watch in 2026.
Not to mention what's happening in Minnesota still with the immigration and Somalis and like businesses and fraud and all that too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just Minnesota. Like, it's being exposed to so many states now. And obviously, fraud is happening everywhere, but it's this, what I see it is like Doge kind of made fraud like it's okay to look at now, even though they didn't do anything with it. Like, people are starting to open up their eyes now and say, maybe there is some things that are fraud, or maybe we should start, bringing fraud into the picture now. And we'll see within just the next couple of weeks here in Minnesota what happens to Tim Walz when they do the hearing with him, the Attorney General, Ellis or whatever. So
Keith Ellis.
Yeah, Keith Ellis. So we'll see what happens with all that. I mean, my assumption is nothing's going to come out of it. Or even if there is something big, like government's still going to end up being government. But it's a major issue right now.
It's been extremely pressing. Been pushed really hard, at least on alternative media, especially with everything that's happening here in Minnesota with the fraud of the Somali community. And
none of the media is like CNN and MSNBC.
Yeah, the mainstream's they're trying not to cover it.
Yeah.
What I don't understand is where's the outrage, man? There should be like way more outrage, especially if you're a Minnesotan, like, is there...
They can't prove it yet.
We still need accountability. We like that amount of money has been taken into fraud. Like
for what's happened right now, the amount of money is already a lot. But
every time I see my paycheck, I get more and more angry. You know, like
we were joking the other day about how like, if you want to protest, this would be the type of thing to protest about. Like,
no,
because this would materially impact you. Every time you look at your paycheck and you see a big chunk of it going to something, you're not against taxes or the concept of taxes, but stewardship for my money goes a long way. So you would think if there's anything to protest, not protest Somalian communities and there's or whatever, you protest the government
capital.
and just like with the government or whatever that allowed this to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then we saw a news blurb like Fox 9 or something. There were protests in the Capitol, but they were protesting for like the Somali community and all that, and for their reasons. And like
they're the ones that are protesting.
Like, I mean, I'm not about like, yeah, Somali hate or anything. No, it's nothing to do with that. I learned a lot about the Somali community, actually, just understanding just the culture and like how their clans work, just like Hmong people too. Yeah. Like the certain obligations to cultural, whatever, just to get that. But it's not that. It's government. It's the government bureaucracy. We talked about it last time, just the bureaucracy of just, and the fear of bad publicity because you're supposedly targeting a community of color, and just the weakness and insipidness of weak government, lazy simple-mindedness, because bureaucracy is so slow. And
I just want to know the why. And what I mean by like the why is, so if fraud is actually happening in the Somalian community, why are people protesting so much to the Somalian community as well? Why are they pandering to the Somalian base? You know, obviously there's votes, obviously there's money, stuff like that they have onto there, but there's got to be a bigger thing that's happening for it. Otherwise, you wouldn't care that much for it unless it was benefiting you in some way.
No, it's kind of like protecting, you know, the kid that's being bullied. That's the motive that's being driven. Yeah. You know, like a community, Somalian is as big as their community here is in Minnesota. It's still a very small community comparably to the amount of different cultures in the U.S. And it feels like it's really being platformed on a large scale. Now. Yeah, and because of everything that's going on, so they need to protect that community. And again, I agree with that. I mean, they shouldn't be targeted as a overall group, but people should be really upset about the fraud that has happened. People should raise more awareness and demand justice for all this fraud that has occurred, and the individuals, whether if you're in the Somalian community or not, or you're just part of the, you know, the big machine and system that allowed this to happen, should be held accountable, going all the way up to Tim Walz, to everyone who reports underneath these factions of where that investigation leads to. And I think people are not upset about that. And it's being painted as, no, it's racism. You're picking on a community.
It shouldn't just be the Somali community. It should be pausing all of it for all daycares, and just pausing for everybody who's getting money for all daycare, whether you're Somalian based, white, whatever. And then just do an audit, a Doge audit of everything in there. Once you find out what's good and what's bad or whatever that you can do, then you can continue that into there, because that needs to be done. It's not like we're pausing everything and we're only checking Somalians. No, you check the whole system for every sector, everything, because you don't want just to focus on the Somalian. You want to focus on the fraud itself and anyone and everyone's doing it, regardless if you're Somalian or not, though.
Well, the thing for me right now is, with everything that's happened, at least within here in Minnesota, setting the example moving forward for a lot of other states to really look at exactly the details of where their tax funds are going. They also, Minnesota has to figure out a way where they can build public trust again, because that's a big screw up. You know, that's a lot of money of taxpayer dollars. And there's a lot of federal funding too that went into a lot of these programs. I think that the first thing that could happen is accountability. Full investigations and audits need to take place. And then, you know, people that were involved need to step down or serve a sentence, you know, prison time if you have to, if it's big fraud, or fines or whatever back to pay back whatever exactly was stolen. And then at the same time, once that gets completed, you know, I feel like there should be some kind of public trust kind of agreement. Maybe you don't have state taxes for Minnesota for the next couple of years, and it's being funded by something else.
Or there has to be more transparency.
Yeah, you know, just to say, hey, you know, we fucked up. So Minnesota, like,
here's a dividend for messing up.
not just a dividend, but, you know, if we can't give you guys a dividend back, we're just not gonna take your money for the next couple years. You know, like, you guys need to just keep all your money or do something to build public trust back, because that's just horrific, you know. And it's just getting to the point now, like, I don't know, as a fellow Minnesotan here, it's like, if I don't know where my taxes are going now, I'm always gonna assume that it's going to some fraud now. Now that this has been exposed, that's how I feel about it. You know, it's like, if I'm gonna pay taxes, fine. I understand the concept of tax. I'm not a tax fan, but I understand that, you know, taxes are required and needed to fund a lot of different
functioning
things.
society,
and we pay for it. And
Yeah.
we'll pay. You know?
Then fine. But when it comes to this type of shit now, with this amount of fraud, I mean, if it was like, oh, someone stole $100,000 here and there, I get it. But at this level, now I feel like I like, stop taking my money. If y'all don't even know where my money's going to, and y'all don't even figure out exactly how to manage this, then stop taking it, you know?
But how did this much money, like, how did it get this out of hand? This is years and years and years of this happening. And then you have the defense card of the racism. You have the post George Floyd area of a heightened sense of climate. And so they had this, the sense of immunity to not have any sort of criticism to their expenditures.
Or have guardrails set up for them.
Yeah. And it's gone on this way for long. This isn't like, by the time people noticed it, it had gotten so out of hand. The money had gotten, the numbers had gotten so big, but the process and the operations had aged so much that they got to do it in the laziest way possible and get away
because
with it.
They felt
invincible because they're going years with getting this money. Like, why try to do the work and hire someone at the front to actually, you know, make it look like you're
legit?
But it's gone this long. So why is that though? Because the thing that really opened my eyes when I digged into this further, and it's like, why wouldn't fraud people find this way sooner? Why wouldn't they be able to determine this? It's because the system, the organizational system, when they think of fraud and removing fraud, our governmental systems have in place fraud to determine fraud at the state level only, meaning not at the end user level, not at the people who receive the money. So when they think of fraud from the perspective of government, you think we need to eliminate the fraud. And what that fraud is, if the state leadership, local leadership doesn't like the federal leadership and their processes that they approved a bunch of Medicaid money to go to something, and that state didn't like it. So that state's like, no, we're not going to approve it for that community because I think that community is just abusing these funds. Well, that's fraud. Like, you can't pick and choose. Like, you have to dig in some research or whatever, but you can't just like pick on a community and say, I don't like their policy because it's like,
it's fraud within their internals.
That's how they view fraud.
Systems.
There's no sense of fraud of, well, now that the money's been dispersed to them, does anybody care about how it's used? And that question actually just doesn't register with government mentality, because government mentality only cares about where has it been attributed to, and did it align with what we wanted? Now, is the money being used the way it's supposed to? No one gives a shit. As long as it's being attributed to the policies we backed. So if we get $1 million for this policy or whatever, for Medicaid waivers or whatever, as long as we got that and we produce and we're supposed to do our due process of just doing it, that's what matters when it.
And plus the backlash of, if you do call it out, they're just going to call you racist or call you.
Well, yeah, Minnesota Department of Education, that was their first line of resistance when they first started seeing, like, this just ain't right. Like, we're seeing this stuff registered from Feeding Our Future, these expenses. When they brought it up, it was like they were on the hook for bringing negative light to them as being people who are discriminating or being, picking and choosing, or they're the group that you would try to target out as, you're not supposed to do fraud by picking and choosing the communities that receive this. That's the lens that you look at. But it's like, man, like, that must mean your government mentality means you just got money free flowing. It doesn't matter. Just like, oh, it's supposed to go there. Where do we put this bag of money? We're supposed to put it over there. And it doesn't matter if it's being used or not. It's just, that's the mentality of just free taxpayer money. It's just, you just, choose your levers and it just goes where it's supposed to go. And that's why you got people who are receiving it who are gotten kind of like lazy and trying to hide it. It's just like,
because it's not going to change, and no one's saying anything.
And if I keep increasing the numbers for reimbursements to say, 20,000, 30,000, they don't say anything. Well, that's how this got out of hand. That's really what it is, because government mentality is always fraud at the other levels of whether or not they are following the policies of this program or whatever. One of the biggest expenses being expensed in this fraud is Medicaid waivers, or like they're like an exception to if Medicaid doesn't cover autistic treatment or whatever. In traditional sense, you can do this Medicaid waiver, so you can just cover that. So that just gives this open, generic, miscellaneous category for you to get money about any sort of service.
It's very smart. If it is fraud in the Somalians, it's very smart of them to do it and not even be able to get caught like that with the help of legislation and people within the government allowing it and enabling it to happen too. Because although they are lazy about it, I'm sure it's like, I own 10 daycares and I'm getting money off of every single one of them. And I don't even have to, I bring my little nephew to watch that one, my cousin to watch that one, my aunt to watch that one. And all they do is go there and watch TV all day. But as long as we show that there's a physical location that has an address, this government's just going to give us money. Yeah. We don't even have, they're not even asking for like attendance records and stuff like that now.
I just put whatever number I could say we had this. And
or we could just lie about it and say we fed 10,000 children in the last month, and like they're just going to give us, they don't even come check.
And then it's obviously that there's no accountability for anything on the back end of things once money's been received. Even on the front things, if you're someone who's receiving the money, you obviously probably had to write and submit an application for a grant or something like that to receive those kind of funding, and you explain exactly what it is,
the need for it.
But you could pretty much say anything, and then if you get it approved, and then there's no kind of set guideline or rule or guardrail that's in place that like says you have to meet this quota or you have to meet these needs in order to qualify for this amount. I think probably, I would imagine the only rule is, you just have to spend your money, put that money somewhere so we know that it's been used without even someone coming in and auditing and actually saying, did you do exactly what you were supposed to do? Like let's just say if you were a doctor and you were writing a grant to do a particular study, you got to show for it, right? You got to probably come back around and show the research, the amount of things that you put into it, at least come with some kind of publication.
Results, findings.
Yeah, something of some kind that money's driving it. I guess whatever these grants that were being given out to fund a lot of these social programs that were happening in that community, there was no back-end accountability. It just, everybody was just receiving money. And I would imagine, without a lot of education, without a lot of understanding economically and how things are working, if you were in that Somalian community and you started that daycare, you received like a bunch of money and no one came by to check on you, you're just gonna like, can I get more? I got another paycheck. Can I get more? Here's another paycheck. And you're just gonna like, okay, what do I need to do?
You would tell your friends and family, this is what you do.
Yeah.
And that's
and it just, that's
and then it just kind of spreads out like that. And now everybody's just jumping on it and there's no stopping it.
But I know for sure it's not one of those things where the Somalians came in and they thought about it and they figured it out. There has to be someone in the inside telling them, this is what you do. Maybe it's the lady that got charged or whatever like that too. But it's the perfect kind of people, they're immigrants, they're big population. They come in, you say one thing or anything about them, then you're racist, or you're not thinking about your Minnesota community, because that's the excuse they always bring up is you can't target the Somalian community. Yeah, right. Don't target specific communities. But if shit is happening within that community, you have to stand up.
You have to have the ability to address it without being thus having the counter risk of being labeled as someone who is a racist or discriminating.
Yeah.
That should be the atmosphere. And so that's the problem. We have frozen whistleblowers or whoever who would try to raise a hand about any of this because of that threat. And that's the power behind social influence of race post, like DEI or can't be racist and all that stuff. So that's why MDE's initial effort was just fizzled out. Like it just never panned out. So that's
even on the post side of the consequence of trying to dig in and discover and figure out exactly where that money came from. But even on the front end, it's like why is the government being so cavalier about our money? You know, it's just, yeah, there's no checks or balances, no guardrails at all in place. It's just like, here's money, here's money, here's money. And then that's what kind of pisses me off, because again, this is money that's coming out of hardworking people, their everyday paychecks, you know, we're putting into the system to keep the system going, and they're just being cavalier about it. Just like, take money, take money.
And why so much too? Like, you would think a daycare, if you open it up, why are you getting like over a million, like $1.6 million for this daycare to take care of like 40 kids? Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of costs and stuff like that involved with that, but it's like,
no one in government, I want to say no one, but like, it's very rare in government, I imagine, that where you'd come to that nuanced level of thinking to reason that out, because you have to look at those very granular numbers to say that doesn't make sense, that doesn't add up. Their level of computation is just, our money goes into this bucket that was approved, programs. In terms of after it goes to the program, what is it being used on? I don't think there's any oversight on that at all. And that's the problem. I'm not going to say any. I know that government entities have like one or two like audit entities that might audit others or whatever, but that's such a small, tiny arm of what they really care about. Because that's the idea. You are cavalier with money when it just doesn't have any value for you. The amount of the money doesn't matter. It's just that you're doing your governmental job by putting it in the program bucket that it was approved for. Yeah. This much goes there, and how much is it being? And you just go through the process every year.
So they saw it, feeding our future. That looks legit. It's the feed hungry children. They're yeah. Stamp it up for approval, but there's no back end checking, no checking of it, or what?
Obviously, the aftermath of this now being exposed tells the public that there is no guardrails on the front end and there's no follow up on the back end until, because again, like we mentioned, billions of dollars have been stolen, taken, and it's been doing this for several years. God knows how long, you know, until now that it's hit the surface and being exposed. And I would imagine if Trump didn't at least put his Trump stamp on it to say something about it, it wouldn't even garner this much attention, you know? And so they could just, it's pretty obvious. I mean, we don't know like the intricate details of exactly what goes into the process of writing up a grant, receiving those kind of funds, and the accountability of it on the back. And I don't know those details, but I know that after this has been exposed, then obviously it tells me that not a lot is going on. No one's doing shit, you know? If they can get away with this for this long,
that means there's no eyes on it.
There's no eyes on it.
There's no eyes now.
And that's pretty alarming. That's really alarming.
People have brought it up in the past too. You know, investigative reporters, stuff like that. This is, they have shit from like 2015 talking about this, but it wasn't put into the limelight until just recently with Trump and Nick Shirley's video like that they put on there. Now it's everywhere. Now it's in Ohio. Now it's in Massachusetts. Now it's in California.
Other states are realizing maybe we need to check on some of these things too. And
yeah, it just seems like it's widespread everywhere because maybe that's the loophole in government that you can get
mentality that it doesn't matter how the money is actually used, as long as it went to where it was voted to be used. And as soon as it goes there, no one cares. Like, that's the problem. Yeah. That's government mentality. That's just the human mentality. When you have shit you don't cherish or value. If someone gives you a bunch of cash every month, it's not like you want to hold on to that cash. You just blow it on whatever. Where do I put this cash?
I'm going to get more anyways.
You get more. So you just like, where do I put the cash this month? Whatever. It really is that. And that's the reality of like our deficits, our state of affairs for a country that, what is it, 30? The actual numbers, like
38 trillion, probably approaching 40 trillion soon here, you know. But again, like these kind of topics are like what old men talk about, you know. They're not, you know, tantalizing and exciting headline news of like some racial war or some human injustice.
It isn't, but it's happening in our backyard.
Yeah, though. But then that's why it doesn't garner like more attention. Only guys and girls who go to work every day, you know, and pay a paycheck and see their small paycheck from after being taxed to death, where it hits home, you know, where you kind of feel the pain of this. Like it bothers me that this kind of things happen. If you're not mindful and you don't really understand those things, then you really don't care. You're just kind of like, meh, So money got passed around. Oh well, can I get some? You know, that's how most of the public probably sees it in that eye. But I think people are more in tune now. People paying a lot more attention to the kind of fraud and the kind of horribly managed money that's being passed around like this, and it's hurting people's pocketbooks because we are struggling. You know, like people are struggling nowadays to even meet the standard cost of living of everyday life, and then
The
to
middle
see
class
money just being thrown
Americans.
away to shit like this that was so easily. It's like it literally. I don't know why there's not a bigger uprising about it. It drives me insane. I'm pissed off. I'm angry about it because I gotta work for everything that I get. Like I
Pay
gotta
off
work
our
my
own
butt
debts
off,
too. Yeah.
and everything is so damn expensive. Everything.
Yeah.
And so it's just like every dollar is like so important to me. And I have to account for every little expenditure that I make,
Yeah.
you know, for myself. I have to make sure my books and my monthly payment on everything is on cue. But like this money is just like it's just throwaway money. It's just like, well, okay, whatever, you know, just toss it around, whatever.
It's like government. I understand the concept of taxes. I'm not anti-tax. I know that societies need a healthy tax system, whatever. All I ask from my government is that you care about my dollar as much as I care about this dollar that I'm going to give to you.
Yeah.
Like this single dollar means a lot to me, and I know I got to give it to you. So you be a good steward of that dollar. That's all I ask. So we may fight and bicker left and right about where the dollar programs or the programs that they should go to. That's fine. That's politics. But for you to just be just so absent-minded with that, you know, and it echoes the other themes when they Doge found even at the federal level, like their accounting system for all that fraud and how outdated it is and how
Yeah.
people don't care. They're just like, yeah, this system, you know, is the one that reimburses people. And we're finally like, it's been going on forever, essentially. But it also, that's what happens in very wealthy power empires. You know, America is that. Like, if you just have money flowing, then you get, you know, like that's just what it is. You know, like people have that.
Figure out a way to
Laziness.
take advantage of it, no
Yeah.
matter what. But we just have to have a better system that protects itself from these kind of different things. That it's bound to happen because there's a lot of money there. Someone's gonna figure it out. They're gonna find a loophole. They're gonna do something. But then there's got to be some accountability. There's got to be something, you know, to protect it from happening.
We'll see what happens in 2026, though.
Yeah. Obviously, Minnesota was a center point of a lot of weird, strange, sad, traumatic things in 2025. But we didn't mention the political assassinations here, right in Minnesota. Charlie Kirk assassination last year. There was this a year of political intrigue, violence, the assassination, the killings at the universities, even later in the year.
Yeah.
Killings galore. Like it just becomes so normalized now. The killing of or the murder of the Ukrainian girl in North Carolina. 2025 was like, I know that bad stuff like that happens every year. It's not just 2025, but the public narrative with that and the public vitriol that is encroaching on people's doors fuels so much of that too. And so when you see the public assassination or the political assassinations or assassinations for people that aren't political characters, even Charlie Kirk's not a political, like he didn't hold an office position or anything, but then you do have Melissa
Hortman.
Yeah, Melissa Hortman. And so the craziness about all that is that's still unresolved. So it's a year in review to look back at that this happened. But who knows what this Vance Bolter, the true secrets behind this? It's still, there's a shit ton of details behind that. I'm looking at it more geopolitical, big picture, what's on the cusp. Venezuela, Iran, all that stuff is kind of scary. I rewatched some parts of when Donald Trump, he had that 60 Minutes interview in November, I think this year. And he just did a lot of boasting, a lot of talking about the peace deal I brokered, and he brought out his list of things. But then there's a snippet about him saying, or they asked, you're testing nuclear weapons, our nuclear weapons again? Like, we haven't done that in forever, no need to. And he like bounced around the answer. He's like, well, you know, other countries test weapons too. And so this is normal procedure. It's like, but why is there a need? Like, we haven't needed to do this. Like, why say it's a good idea now? And like, it could be completely a nothing burger. It's just like, yeah, they're just testing stuff because they're not exploding weapons, but they're testing the whole systems. They're it just lends to something like you're testing your nuclear systems.
Or it also lends to him just putting it out there in the ecosphere of like, we're testing nuclear
We're
systems.
testing nuclear systems.
Just a reminder, we
put
have that.
idea.
We have that stuff, you know, we have that in our background. You know, there's
You just don't want nuclear to be in the conversation on the world stage at all, though. That's the problem. I don't even, but it is. And it was the big reason that Iran got attacked or bombed by the US too. Forgot about that. And that still hasn't really resolved. It's not like, oh, Iran got banned, we're fine now, and forget about it. You know, we're good. No, that's why Iran had that declaration of like, we're at war with US and all that. And it's so yeah, all those geopolitical pieces are moving at some pace somewhere. And then there's that old tricky AI subject too, that's still lingering.
The battle of AI.
And has all this other stuff.
They know it's coming.
Its fingers at play in the whole geopolitics, everything too. What I recall last year, one news blip that I totally forgot, but was reminded of that new Army department where they have the tech CEOs of ChatGPT, Meta, AI. They're now military members now, and they have their own branch in the military for their AI technology development. Like why is that? You know, like because AI, everything. There's so many levers behind the scene.
They can make new product. That's all they can do. AI, militarized weapons, perfect. We have them and we can sell them at that point.
Yeah. Every little decision being made on the commerce level, economics, the sanctions being placed by certain countries to say you can't get this certain rare earth metal or whatever. All that has to do with the AI too. It's an arms race for that. I don't know. It's just,
and that's it. Just to mention, AI videos and music has gotten like so much. It's like a new genre of like stuff now. But it's such a laziness to it, though. You know, there's no need for actual musicians now if they're trying to do that, though.
I always imagine when it comes to newer technology like that, the government, what they do is probably they allow a certain version of that piece of technology for the general audience, for the general public, you know. So we can be acquainted to it, but we also socially accept it into our life, you know, that this is kind of part of society and this is our being. But what they're working on is probably something on a whole different level of what we comprehend.
They're like 2 stages ahead of us or whatever.
Yeah.
So this ChatGPT, AI, you know, Claude, whatever, we got like the rudimentary level of that.
That's version. The consumer level, you know.
Yeah.
Then there's the commercial level, and then there's the backstage government level.
Lifetime pass.
Yeah, only kind of backstage pass that only you have to get the security pass.
Security clearance to be at that level.
Access to it. Who knows what that might be.
And even though that might sound very like conspiracy, blah, 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 we easily forget that our military, our tax-paying dollars in our military is behind like the whole advent of a connected internet world, because our military invented that. Like all countries are connected now, and the U.S. military was the one behind all that. And when that rolled out, I remember that was in our lifetime when it rolled out. Like there was a period in our life we remember before internet, and so
this rollout is going to be the AI for this next generation.
You guys also got to keep in mind that the internet that we use is the public domain internet, but most of the internet is in the dark web.
The dark web.
It's like 98% of the entire internet is the dark web, you know? But you think about how vast and how large the internet, the public platform that we use.
It's like unlimited, it seems like, you know,
already.
But it's only a sliver of actual internet activity taking place in other sectors and other inaccessible places.
I mean, I've been on the dark web before, and then I don't know. I don't even know how to use it. I'm just walking around, navigating through like random sites or whatever like that. I don't even know if I was on it, you know? Like,
well, what made you think you were even on it then?
Because it was like 15 years ago. It was a long time ago. So dark web is probably even different than what it was when I looked at it. But I was using a particular browser. Like at that time, it was like DuckDuckGo or something. There was something like that.
DuckDuckGo is more recent, right?
No, it's common now, but it was something like that. Maybe it was
an off-brand one. It wasn't like Google Chrome or Mozilla.
No, it wasn't the standard thing, and it was you have to go through like a special web page or something that leads you there or something like
Netscape?
that, or VPN or something. And then once you're in there, like I don't know, it was like
I'm in a new place.
The unknown zone, you know.
Where am I?
Where am I? I'm just gonna go to YouTube.
But then you go to YouTube, it looks way different, and it's like
It'd be different though.
I don't know. Like you explain it as if like you went to a place or something, but it feels kind of like that, but it's also kind of like, yeah, I'm kind of curious of what that is. But I'm also, if someone say, hey, you want to jump on the dark web? I wouldn't want to go on it. I'm just like, I'm good, man. I'm good. I have enough things to worry about in the regular internet already. All the stuff being seen, all the stuff people sharing. I'm looking into a lot of too much too. So, but connecting the dots, is there intention? Is this a soft propaganda to celebrate, 250-year military parade on Donald Trump's birthday with the No Kings? Remember that? And the political assassinations. That all happened one day, June 14th.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I remember political assassinations were obviously front of mind. It was in our backyard. And then we heard about the No Kings, and then the birthday for Donald Trump, and then the 250-year thing and it was cost a lot of money, $25-30 million to do that. So that's why it received a lot of criticism. But you're like, celebrate our army, or is it soft propaganda now, especially to address the nation? And I know it was a big deal for him, very proud to say 1776 warrior dividend was the address that you were talking about earlier. So is this a soft propaganda to like, because my understanding was just like enlistment was like at an all-time low leading into this, people like didn't have much hope or aspiration for military career or anything. So enlistment was low. So all this is like, again, all this is behind the scenes of levers of things to get like a warrior dividend, $1,776. That's so nice, and proud to be that warrior. And so
I wish I had $1,776.
And I'm not saying it's not deserved. It's great. That's good and all, but it's more like the way he presented it. This is all public move to sort of posture the public to appreciate that Iran's posturing a certain way, and it's just but the nuclear side too, like hopefully that's yet to be seen. It's too much. That's what I said earlier. I don't know what to believe anymore. So 2025 was
you
like,
really don't know what to
where are we stepping? Like we're pivoting in a new place, but it's
it does feel awkward. But I think a lot of it also is 2025 is a lot of us trying to get used to a new era. Back to the very beginning, what we were talking about. We went through 4 years of just quietness. It felt like, peaceful, quiet, but we're all kind of struggling,
But like things were sort of shit's falling apart behind the scenes.
Yeah, behind the scenes. It wasn't in your face all the time. Or
in certain communities it was, but maybe in some communities it wasn't in your face. Yeah.
I mean, we definitely felt, the struggle, the pain, cost of housing, cost of living, everything. Inflation hit record highs, But I think this first past year of 2025 was our first year of everybody just kind of like figuring it all out, just getting it settled into a new era of things. And who knows, maybe it calms down a bit this year, or maybe it was just the setup where the payout ends going to be 2026. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it's going to be good. 2026 is going to be a lot better, where maybe the payoff for a lot of the things that have been invested behind the curtains is actually intended for something good, where 2026 and beyond is going to be actually like people living prosperously, cost of living going down, cost of housing and interest rates all dropping down. People are, the economy's growing. Yeah. People are, maybe, the peace between Russia and Ukraine finally happens and they shake hands, and then there's peace around the world and there's prosperity, and, we're getting taken off to the next stage of what's good in the world, or it could just be the opposite. I don't know. I'm hoping the latter, but
that's the problem. Like anyone can latch onto whatever narrative they're going to want and either have hope or an extreme amount of fear or whatever in it. To be honest, I just think it's a mishmash of everything. There's going to be a lot of good stuff, and there's going to be a lot of bad stuff. There's just
but there's just going to be a lot of stuff.
There's so much consequential reverberating effects, because again, whether you're pro Trump's policy, anti-some, anti-all, hate him, whatever, it doesn't matter. His political activity, his influence was so much so that the reverberations are just natural. They're going to kick back the tariff piece, all the uprising, the geopolitical stuff. So and there'll be some good stuff as a result of policies happening. You feel the effect. I think it's really the the number one place should be your tax.
Yeah,
That's really what it should be.
I hear we're supposed to get a good tax
Yeah,
return.
the tax reform that
I
they
think tax
introduced.
is pretty hard though.
That's usually where it should be hitting people first, where they feel that if there's benefits.
Tax is even lower.
Like maybe it all depends on the simulation of which you subscribe to.
Yeah.
You know? If you subscribe on the anti-Trump, then 2026 is gonna be even worse. You know, or if you're pro-Trump, then who knows? You know, like it might get better. You know,
I just don't want to. I get a letter saying I owe state tax now because of the recent fraudulent activities. What? I have to help pay for this fraudulency?
Yeah, we committed the fraud, so now we need to help pay for it.
Yeah, every piece of that puzzle, AI, technology, geopolitical stuff, economy, man, that's what I mean. All that mishmash of it's not. These aren't just little policies that are, you know, and like social justice policies. They're not bad, but it's whether or not transgenders can use certain bathrooms or something. It's not gonna have that same reverberating effect as it's gonna the global stage of everything that's been happening with where things are at.
Yeah, and speaking about the subscribing side too, as well, like everybody's just splattered everywhere now. I mean, there's so many different camps, and everyone's uprising and figuring out exactly where the chips fall, and you're trying to figure out exactly. I mean, there's a lot of influencers, a lot of political pundits, a lot of political leaders. You know, like J.D. Vance, the vice president, Marco Rubio. They're supposed to be the front runners in regards to. I mean, the whole idea is what's going to happen when Trump's gone?
Yeah.
Who's going to take his place?
Yeah.
You know, but then that faction is, you know, whole MAGA is getting divided up into different factions now too as well. But then, you know, the whole Democrat side, they have their own factions that are been at war with each other because there's that fringe left side that's just, you know, anti-Trump everything, but there's also the centrist, you know, liberals who are kind of like, man, you guys are just too crazy. You know, like Bill Maher's one of those guys, you know, he's kind of a more central liberal, at least that's where he wants to claim his fame, you know, like
he and Stephen A kind of both do that. Yeah.
Yeah. They've gone, I can't even get with the woke left anymore. They're just too woke now, too crazy and all that stuff. So there's all these like cracks in the system. So it's just kind of like, it's really causing everybody to spread out. Like let's change teams and move things around and move the pieces around to cause all this confusion to everybody within the political realm, you know, because it's gotten boring in this left and right only, you know. Let's make some new teams, you know. So who knows exactly where that's going to lead to, you know. And then there's big political leaders like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's going to step down, you know. And then there's new stars that are rising like Thomas Massey, who's getting a bigger brand and a different faction within the Republican Party, who's kind of more similar on the, you know, the Ron Paul kind of camp where it's more, you know, libertarian, fiscal conservative kind of faction and stuff like that. I really don't know what's going on the left either, you know, like who those leaders are.
New York just
That
got
was
their
gonna say
first
that.
mayor.
That's
I mean, Muslim.
The Muslim one.
Yeah,
there.
that's a new sort of a breakthrough sort of that you would never expect to be the mayor of the biggest city, you know.
Yeah, St. Paul.
Yeah,
St. Paul got I think she's Hmong.
Yeah,
Her
she's
last name
Hmong,
is
yeah.
Hmong Ho.
Yeah.
So
She's
the mayor of St. Paul that was just like it is
Hmong
woman.
Ho.
Yeah, Hmong woman.
Something
I didn't
like
know
that.
that. So
I didn't know that, but
interesting.
but yeah, the mayor in New York, that was like such a big deal, and
Well, he
what
was
it's
such a big
supposed to
deal.
signify, you know, what it was signify him winning, his background, someone who's
Zora?
socialist and all that.
But Zora's biggest issue was the fact that he was a hardcore socialist.
Yeah.
Hardcore socialist.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't just his racial background or his
Openly
background.
socialist, yeah.
He's openly
Yeah.
like socialist, you know, and for a city as big as New York to now have that represented, that's a big thing.
That's
you
a
know?
new thing. Yeah. So it says a lot about like the instability of where people are feeling is home or their tribe or their place of comfort. It's not as easy as left or right. But with each tribe and new comfort or new grouping or whatever, that comes new realities. Like this is our reality of what's true. Even the split between MAGA, between what actually happened between Charlie Kirk, they have their own realities now. And one reality is so consequentially different than the other reality Because if one reality does believe that like Charlie Kirk's assassination was tied to the leftist movement, whatever, that's your reality, and that has great grave implications. If your reality is that Charlie Kirk was killed by these other hands, then that's its own reality, and there's going to be a lot of that too. So lots of implications from these subgroup realities that they're kind of carving out for themselves.
Yeah, it's going to be a big mix-up going into 2026. I mean, like everybody's kind of scattered across the board everywhere.
It'll be quiet, and then midterms. That'll be the big swelling piece. That'll be like that first on everyone's radar, because I think that's really what the left is waiting for, holding out for right now. You had the longest government holdout ever. You had all these games that you wanted to play to fight against Trump. You have all this stuff, but now the midterms is where rubber meets the road. This is how we get our power back. Yeah. So that'll be very heightened. The left side felt like it was a win by having all those mayoral races in November fall to the blue side. So they're like, yeah, this is a sign of things to come. Obviously, left and right, they're going to be fighting a lot to determine what that'll look like midterms. Because usually it does switch to the other side. So if the president is left, usually the midterms will swing right.
To try and balance,
yes, balance out and vice versa. Yeah. Because the blue is still looking for an identity to sort of lead that. But the identities don't look the same anymore. If your mayor of New York looks like that, who knows what the identities of your future leaders look like? But that'll be a big deal too.
And then that's the thing what the left has been doing is each individual has been kind of going out campaigning, themselves. It's like, look at me, like I'm the guy, like
let me filibuster for the next 20 hours to showcase my.
Let me show you how much I hate Trump. I'm gonna go on this long speech about how horrible Trump is. Everybody's paying attention, like.
It's the fact that technology and social media too, how it affects how you can affect voting and affect people's minds, and that's like another thing that you can go down to as well. Like in the example you gave about Dad, about him being fed MSNBC's information through hmong, but
through a translation
of that. But you would think as a person, that's the news. So I only listen to that though. But everything, technology today, nowadays too, and just everything's just moving too fast.
I'm just gonna crawl into my hole and just forget about the world. That's all it is just nonsense entertainment. Who knows? That's what all it's gonna boil down to. You can't help but pay attention, but then it just brings more anger, more frustration. Everybody, the only reason a lot of people pay attention is just, I need more weapons to attack the other side, So if I ever get into that situation where I have debate,
I need to win.
I got to use more.
Everybody has to win.
Well, what about this? And what about that? And I'll bring this thing up,
Trap them here.
Yeah. They don't have a comeback for that. Yes, I'm going to use that one. Just, who cares?
Well, it's trickled every aspect, and I'll close out with this. It trickled every aspect of all the things I mentioned before, that I would never envision tying your worlds of this political heavy thing with your world of entertainment and humor and stuff. But the recurring themes of like the overarching recurring geopolitical themes, Epstein, this, that, Israel and all that. And then it wrapped up in Dave Chappelle's latest special of how he dropped the line of him also saying something just doesn't feel right out there. So it's not just like, I think everybody has a sinking feeling that they may not know what it is. And he says, if you really don't know, then shut the fuck up, but you also know, he knows that there is that feeling of like something's off, that there's not. And so everything sort of ties back into, I didn't expect his special to talk about that. And then he dropped the other things too about Israel and all that. But yeah, it's like, can I get away from all this stuff? I wanted to see a funny special. Yeah. I need to get away, man. Like, everything keeps coming back up to some heavy, dark theme, and but that was the end of 2025, December, that comedy special dropped, and so we'll see. I'll have to drop and see how 2026 goes. Go from here. Yada yada gold. More to come. More to come.
Like, subscribe.
Please like and subscribe.